He stopped her mom from helping. How did he know about something in her wound?
Blood ran down my daughter's face, and no one moved. She looked at me, trembling, whispering, "Mom." We were in the middle of a crowded restaurant, plates still on the table, people mid-conversation like nothing was wrong. My 8-year-old Ava was on the floor now, her hands shaking, red dripping onto the tile. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. I stood up so fast my chair slammed back. I reached for her, of course I did, but before I could take a step, my husband blocked me. He raised his hand like he was in charge of the entire room. "Everyone stay seated." And the worst part, they listened. Even the staff froze. No one came to help. No one even spoke. I tried to push past him, but he stepped closer, lowering his voice just for me. "Don't move." And that's when I realized he wasn't trying to help her for her. I know how that sounds. I know what kind of man it makes him sound like. If I had been watching it happen to someone else, I would have thought the same thing I was thinking in that exact second. What kind of father steps in front of his bleeding child? "Ava," I said, trying to keep my voice steady even though my chest was already locking up. "Baby, look at me." She did, barely. Her eyes were wet and confused, her lips pulled tight like she was trying not to cry harder than she already was. Blood kept sliding from somewhere under her hair, tracing down her cheek and dripping off her chin onto the floor. Not a little, not a scrape. Enough that every instinct in me was screaming to get pressure on it. Get her upright, get help, do something. But Daniel didn't even glance down at her. That was the part I still can't forget. He stood squarely in front of me in his dark button down, one arm slightly out, not touching me but making it impossible to move past him without shoving him. And his face wasn't panicked. It wasn't confused, it was focused, cold, almost. Like he had moved past fear and into some other mode I wasn't part of. "Daniel," I said, louder this time, "move." A couple at the next table had gone completely still. The woman had a napkin halfway to her mouth and just held it there, staring. Across the room, a waiter had stopped with a tray in his hands. Glasses trembled against each other. Someone near the bar stood up a few inches from their chair, then sat back down the second Daniel looked in that direction. That made my stomach drop. Not because strangers were listening to him. Because they were. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't explain. He just said, "Stay seated," and the whole room seemed to fold around that command like it made sense. Ava let out a thin, shaky sound from the floor. "Mom?" I tried to step left. Daniel moved left. "Are you insane?" I hissed. She hit her head. "I know," he said. "You know?" My voice cracked. "Then let me get to her." His eyes flicked to mine for a second, and I saw something there I couldn't read fast enough. Not guilt, not yet, not exactly fear either. Calculation, like he was measuring what I would do next. "Don't touch her," he said quietly. The words were so wrong, so completely wrong, that I just stared at him. Ava pushed one palm against the tile like she was trying to sit up, her hand slipped in her own blood. The sight of it almost made me physically lunge, but Daniel's arm came out farther, blocking me across the waist. "Daniel!" I snapped. "Get off me!" Behind him, one of the waitresses finally found her voice. "Should I call an ambulance?" "Yes," I shouted at the same time Daniel said, "Not yet." Every head turned between us. Not yet. The phrase hit me harder than it should have, because it meant he was making decisions. About our daughter. About the blood on the floor. About the fact that she was crying and trying to reach for me while he held me back like I was the problem. I looked past him toward the manager's stand. The manager, a heavy-set man in a gray vest, was frozen with one hand on the counterphone. He wasn't looking at Ava, he was looking at Daniel, waiting. Waiting for permission. The room had gone unnaturally quiet now. No silverware clinking, no low conversations. Just the hum of the overhead lights, Ava's small broken breaths, and a slow jazz track still drifting from speakers in the ceiling like the restaurant hadn't noticed the scene happening in the middle of it. "Please," I said, and I hated how thin my voice sounded. "She needs me." Daniel swallowed once. "I need you to listen." That made something hot and immediate tear through the panic. "No," I said, "you need to get out of my way." For a second, I thought I might actually hit him. Not because I wanted to, not because I'm that kind of person, but because my body had run out of places to put the fear. My daughter was on the floor bleeding. and my husband was standing between us, speaking to me like this was some kind of drill. Then Ava started crying harder. Not screaming. That would have almost been easier. This was worse, small, breathless crying, like she was trying to be brave and failing. Mom, it hurts. I dropped all pretense and shoved Daniel in the chest. He didn't move. He had always been stronger than me, but he had never used that against me before. 8 years of marriage, and we had fought, sure, the normal kind money, schedules, his long hours. The fact that he never really brought work home, and somehow that was its own kind of wall, but never this. Never a moment where I felt him choosing control over me so clearly that it made the room tilt. Daniel, I said, and now people were definitely hearing the change in my voice. If you stop me from helping her one more second, I swear to God. She could have something in the wound. I stopped. Not because I believed him. Because I didn't understand him. What? He looked at Ava for the first time, then, fast and sharp, then scanned the room again. Not the room in general, specific places. The front entrance, the hallway to the restrooms, the far corner by the windows. He was looking for someone. Or making sure someone was still there. My skin went cold. What do you mean something in the wound? I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out his phone, and typed something with one hand. Quick, efficient, not shaking. He sent the message and slid the phone back out of sight. That was when I realized this hadn't started for him when Ava hit the floor. He was already in it. The thought came so fast I almost pushed it away. He knows more than he's saying. A man 2 tables over said, "Somebody needs to help that little girl." "Yes," I snapped, turning toward him. "Thank you." But before the man could stand, Daniel cut in without even looking over. "Sir, sit down." And unbelievably, after one stunned beat, the man did. I stared at my husband like I didn't know him. He finally lowered his voice again, only for me. "Emily, I need 30 seconds. "For what?" He didn't answer. Ava shifted on the floor and made a weak, pained noise. Blood had reached the grout lines in the tile now, thin red threads spreading outward. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my jaw. Everything in me wanted to kneel beside her, get my hand under her head, pull her against me, and block out the whole room. Instead, I was standing in place while my husband ran the scene like he had some right. And then I noticed something I should have seen sooner. At a table near the windows, a man in a navy jacket was sitting completely still. Too still. Everyone else in the restaurant looked shocked, upset, uncomfortable, normal reactions. But this man wasn't reacting at all. He wasn't staring at the blood. He wasn't murmuring to the person next to him because there was no one next to him. He was just sitting there with one hand around a water glass, eyes lowered, like he was trying very hard to look uninvolved. Daniel was watching him. Not constantly, in flashes, quick checks between every other glance. And the second I followed his line of sight, Daniel's body tensed. Ava whimpered again, then forced out 3 words through tears. "Mom." He pushed me. I forgot to breathe. I looked from my daughter on the floor to the stranger near the window. And Daniel said, very quietly, "Don't turn around. Don't turn around." Of course I did. My head snapped toward the man by the window before I could stop myself. He didn't look up, but his grip on the glass tightened just slightly, enough for me to notice, enough for me to know he'd heard. My stomach dropped. "That's him?" I whispered, my voice barely holding together. Daniel didn't answer right away. That silence told me more than anything else could have. Behind us, Ava made a weak sound, and every instinct in me surged forward again. "Daniel," she said, "he pushed her. What does that even mean? Why is she bleeding like that?" "I'm figuring that out," he said, still watching the man. "Figuring it out?" I snapped. "She's on the floor." "I know exactly where she is," he said, sharper now but still controlled, still contained in a way that made everything worse. "And I need you to stay right here." I let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "You need me to what? Stand still while our daughter—" "Yes." The word cut clean through me. For a second, everything else faded, the restaurant, the people, even Ava's crying, and all I could hear was that single, flat command, not a request, not even an explanation. Just, yes. That was when the anger fully hit. Not panic, not confusion, anger. "You don't get to decide that," I said, my voice dropping lower. "You don't get to stand here and act like I'm the problem while she's bleeding." Daniel finally turned to look at me fully, and for a moment I saw something crack through that controlled exterior. "Emily," he said quietly. If you trust me at all? Not right now, I cut in immediately. Move. Behind him, the manager shifted nervously, glancing between us and the man near the window. A couple at a nearby table had started whispering urgently. Someone else had their phone halfway raised, recording. The room was starting to come back to life, but in the worst way. Not helpful, not controlled, just tense, watchful, waiting for something to break. And Ava was still on the floor. She tried to push herself up again, her arm trembling. Mom. That was it. I stepped forward, forcing Daniel to either move or physically stop me again. He didn't grab me this time, but he stepped directly into my path, close enough that I had to stop or collide with him. 30 seconds, he said again, more urgently now. For what? I demanded. His eyes flicked, just for a second, back to the man near the window. That's when I saw it. The man was no longer completely still. He was shifting in his seat subtle, almost unnoticeable unless you were watching for it. His chair angled slightly. His foot moved back under the table like he was preparing to stand. To leave. Daniel, I said, my voice tightening. He's moving. I know. You know? I echoed. Then why are you still standing here? Because if he walks out that door right now, Daniel said quietly, we lose him. The words landed hard. Lose him. Not he leaves, not he gets away. Lose him, like this wasn't random, like this mattered beyond just what he'd done to Ava. Daniel, I said slowly, something colder creeping into my voice now. What aren't you telling me? He didn't answer. Instead, he shifted slightly to the side, just enough that I could finally see Ava again without him blocking my entire view. She was curled slightly now, one hand pressed weakly near her head, her fingers slick with blood. Her breathing was uneven, small gasps between quiet sobs. And I wasn't next to her. That realization hit harder than anything else. I'm done, I said. I moved. This time, Daniel didn't stop me. I dropped to my knees beside Ava, my hands hovering for half a second before I carefully slid one under her shoulder, the other near her arm. I've got you, I whispered, my voice shaking now. I'm right here. She leaned into me immediately, small and fragile and warm, and I felt the dampness of blood against my sleeve. Mom, it hurts, she said. I know, baby, I know, I murmured, trying to keep my voice steady even as my eyes scanned her head, trying to find where the bleeding was coming from. Her hair was matted near her temple. Daniel, I said, not looking up, I need something, napkins, towels, anything. Don't press it, he said quickly. I froze. Don't what? Don't put pressure on it yet. I looked up at him, disbelief flooding back in. That's exactly what you're supposed to do, I said. Basic first aid. Not if there's something embedded. The words hung in the air. Embedded. I looked back down at Ava's head, my fingers hesitating just above her hairline. What are you talking about? I asked slowly. Daniel stepped closer now, lowering himself slightly, his voice tight but controlled. I didn't see her fall, he said, and that kind of bleeding doesn't match a simple push. A chill ran down my spine. Behind him, a chair scraped suddenly. I looked up. The man near the window was standing now and heading toward the exit. Don't let him leave. Daniel's voice cut through the restaurant like something solid, something people reacted to before they even thought about it. The man near the window froze mid-step. For half a second, everything held. Then the room erupted. What is going on? Someone shouted. You can't just lock people in here, another voice snapped. Chairs scraped. Phones came up. The fragile silence shattered into noise and confusion. Lock the doors, Daniel said, already moving. The manager hesitated just long enough to show he wasn't used to taking orders like this, then rushed toward the entrance, fumbling with the latch. The soft click of the lock echoed louder than it should have. Hey, the man near the window barked, turning now, his calm gone. Open that, now. No one moved to help him. I stayed on the floor with Ava, her weight pressed into me, her small fingers clutching my sleeve. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might make me dizzy. Mom, she whispered. I'm here, I said, brushing her hair back gently, carefully trying to see without touching too much. Just stay with me, okay? But my eyes kept flicking up. The man was closer to the door now, his posture tight, agitated. Not confused, not concerned. Cornered. That's what it looked like. Daniel, I called, my voice sharper now. What is happening? He didn't answer right away. He had positioned himself between the man and the rest of the room, not aggressively, but deliberately, like he knew exactly how much space to take up. You need to sit back down, Daniel said to him. The man let out a short, humorless laugh. Or what? Daniel didn't raise his voice. Or, this gets worse for you. That landed. I saw it in the man's face, a flicker. Not fear exactly, recognition. Like they were speaking a language the rest of us didn't understand. Daniel, I snapped again. Talk to me. This time, he glanced back, just briefly. That man didn't just push her, he said. The words hit like a jolt. What does that mean? I demanded. But before he could answer, the man near the door suddenly moved fast. Not toward the main exit. Sideways, toward a narrow hallway marked restrooms, staff only. Stop him, Daniel shouted. One of the waiters instinctively stepped into the path, arms half raised like he didn't fully believe what he was doing. The man slammed into him, knocking him back into a table. Glass shattered. Someone screamed. The entire restaurant shifted from tense to chaotic in a second. I tightened my hold on Ava as bodies moved, voices overlapping, footsteps rushing. Daniel! I yelled. I've got him, he shot back, already moving. But I could hear it in his voice now. This wasn't fully under control anymore. Nothing was... Mom... Ava's voice was weaker this time. I looked down immediately. Her face had gone paler, her breathing shallower. I'm right here, I said quickly, panic surging again. Stay with me, Ava, look at me. Her eyes struggled to focus. I feel... weird, she murmured. Weird. Not just pain. Something else. My stomach dropped. Daniel! I shouted again, louder now, desperation cutting through everything. She's not okay. I know, he called back, but he wasn't looking at us. He was watching the hallway, calculating. That was it. Stop, I snapped. Stop worrying about him for 1 second and look at your daughter. That got him. He turned back just for a moment, but I saw it. The shift. The conflict finally breaking through his control. I am, he said, quieter now but strained. Then act like it. Ava suddenly tensed in my arms. Her fingers dug into my sleeve, her body stiffening for a second before a sharp, involuntary sound escaped her, a high, piercing cry that didn't sound like anything before. Not just pain. Something deeper. Wrong. Her back arched slightly, and her free hand flew up toward her head. No, I said quickly, catching her wrist before she could touch the wound. Don't just stay still. Mom, it burns, she cried. Burns. I looked up at Daniel, fear now fully taking over. What did he do to her? I demanded. Daniel didn't answer immediately. But this time, he didn't look toward the man. He looked straight at Ava, and whatever he saw made his expression change completely. Tighter, darker, certain. He stepped closer, lowering himself beside us again. Emily, he said, voice low and controlled in a way that made my chest tighten. I need you to listen very carefully. I shook my head. No more vague answers, tell me what's happening. His eyes locked onto mine. If there's something in that wound, he said, we can't disturb it. My heart skipped. What do you mean something? I pressed. Ava let out another sharp cry, her body jolting again in my arms. And Daniel said, finally. I don't think that's just an injury. Ava's scream didn't sound like pain anymore. It was sharper, higher, like something had hit a nerve it wasn't supposed to. Her body jerked in my arms, her fingers clawing weakly at my sleeve as her back arched for just a second before she collapsed against me again, shaking. Hey, I've got you, I said quickly, tightening my hold around her shoulders. You're okay, just stay with me. But my voice was slipping. I could hear it. This wasn't normal. This wasn't a fall. This wasn't a cut. I'd seen kids get hurt before, playground accidents, bike crashes, even stitches once. This was different. Daniel, I said, barely holding it together now, do something. I am, he said, already dropping down beside us. He moved closer than before, his composure still there but thinner now, like it was being stretched to its limit, his eyes locked onto the side of Ava's head. Don't move her, he said. I'm not moving her, I snapped. She's the one. Emily, he cut in, sharper. I need to see. Something in his tone made me shift, just slightly, giving him a clearer angle. Okay, I said quickly. Okay, just be careful. He nodded once. Then, slowly, deliberately, he reached toward Ava's hairline. Sweetheart, he said, softer now, his voice changing just enough that it made my chest tighten. I'm going to look, all right? Don't touch it. Ava whimpered but didn't resist. With careful fingers, Daniel parted the blood-matted strands of her hair. For a second, I didn't see anything. Just blood. Then the light hit it at the right angle. A tiny glint. Metal. My breath caught. What is that? I whispered. Daniel didn't answer immediately. His jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing as he leaned in slightly, inspecting it without touching. It was small, barely visible unless you were looking for it, embedded just beneath the skin near her temple like something had punctured and stayed there. Not glass. Not debris. Placed. No, I breathed, my stomach dropping. No, that's not. What is that? Don't touch it, Daniel said again, more urgently this time. I wasn't going to just tell me what I'm looking at. His silence stretched just a second too long. Then he said it. I think it's a micro-injector. The words didn't make sense at first. A what? But even as I said it, something cold and heavy settled into my chest. Injected. Not hit. Not cut. Something was put inside her. I looked down at Ava, at her small body curled against me, her face pale, her breathing uneven, and the idea became real in the worst possible way. She said he pushed her. I said slowly, that wasn't a push, was it? Daniel shook his head once. No. The noise in the restaurant had shifted again, louder now, more chaotic. Someone was crying, someone else was arguing with staff. I could hear a voice in the distance saying they'd already called 911. Good. Finally, but it felt too far away, too slow. What does it do? I demanded, my voice rising despite myself. Daniel, what does that thing do? He hesitated. That hesitation told me everything I didn't want to know. Daniel. I don't know exactly, he said, controlled but tight. Not yet. Not yet? I repeated. What does that mean, not yet? You recognized it. I recognized the type, he corrected, not the payload. Payload. My stomach turned. You're talking about her like she's... I stopped, unable to even finish the sentence. Ava, I said instead, gripping her hand tighter. Her name is Ava. I know her name, he said quietly. For a moment, something real broke through. Again, something human, but it didn't last. Then act like it, I snapped. Before he could respond, a shout came from across the restaurant. He's trying to get out. I looked up. That man was being blocked near the hallway by two staff members, but he was fighting now, shoving one of them aside, his movements sharp, desperate. Cornered animals don't panic. They escape. Daniel, I started. I see him, he said, already halfway standing, but he didn't move toward him. That's when I understood something that made everything worse. He wasn't going after him. Not yet. He stayed right where he was beside Ava, balancing both, choosing both, and failing to fully control either. Why aren't you stopping him? I demanded. Because if I move now, he stopped himself. If you move now, what? I pushed. His eyes met mine. And for the first time, there was no hesitation left. Just truth, almost. Then we lose control of this. Control. That word again. Not safety. Not Ava. Control. Ava stirred weakly in my arms, her voice barely there now. Mom, it hurts. I bent closer immediately. I know, baby. I know. My eyes flicked back to Daniel, my voice shaking now, stripped of everything but fear. What did he put in her? Daniel held my gaze. And this time, he didn't soften it. Something that wasn't meant for her. The sirens got louder, but inside the restaurant, everything still felt suspended. Too slow, too tight, like time had narrowed down to just the space around Ava's body in my arms. Stay with me, I whispered, brushing her hair back again without touching the wound. Ava, look at me, just keep looking at me. Her eyes fluttered, unfocused. Across the room, the struggle near the hallway escalated, shouting, a crash, someone yelling for space, but it all felt distant, like it was happening behind glass. Daniel didn't move toward it. He stayed with us. That, more than anything, told me how serious this was. Seconds later, the front doors burst open. Paramedics rushed in first, two of them dropping to the floor beside us almost immediately, bags already unzipped, gloves snapping into place. "What happened?" one of them asked, fast and focused. "Head injury," I started, but Daniel cut in. "Possible foreign object embedded," he said clearly, "right temple, unknown delivery mechanism." The paramedic's eyes flicked to him, quick assessment, then back to Ava. "Okay," she said. "Okay, we've got her." They worked fast, controlled. One stabilized Ava's head while the other carefully parted her hair, confirming what we'd already seen. "I see it," the second paramedic said. "Don't touch it. We're not removing it here." "I know," Daniel replied. Of course he did. That realization hit again, sharper this time, but I didn't have space for it yet. They fitted a collar around Ava's neck, securing her head in place. "Ava," the paramedic said gently, "we're going to take care of you, okay?" Ava didn't respond. That was the worst moment. Worse than the blood. Worse than the screaming. The silence. "She was talking," I said quickly, panic rising. "She was just talking." "She still is," the paramedic said calmly. "Stay with her." They lifted her onto the stretcher, careful, precise, every movement deliberate. I stood immediately following. "I'm coming with her." "Yes, ma'am," one of them said, already moving toward the door. Behind us, police were entering now, voices rising, commands being issued. I caught a glimpse of the man being forced to the ground, his arms pinned behind his back, his face pressed into the tile. For a second, our eyes met. And there it was. Not panic. Not regret. Recognition. Like he knew exactly what had happened and that it hadn't gone the way he planned. I turned away, my stomach twisting. Outside, the night air hit cold and sharp. They loaded Ava into the ambulance and I climbed in right behind her, grabbing her hand again as they hooked her up to monitors. Daniel appeared at the back doors, but he didn't get in right away. He looked at me. "Emily, you knew," I said, the words coming out flat, hollow. His jaw tightened. "I suspected." "That's not the same thing?" I shot back. "I didn't think they'd do it like this," he said. "Not here. Not here. Not in public. Not where she could be hit instead." The door started to close. "Wait," I said sharply. They paused. I looked at him, really looked this time. "You brought us here," I said, knowing something might happen. "I didn't know it would be tonight." "But you knew it could be," I pressed. He didn't answer. That was enough. "Go," I told the paramedic. The door shut, and he was left standing outside. The hospital blurred together in pieces. Bright lights, fast movement, questions I couldn't fully process. They took Ava straight into a controlled room. Specialists. Words like containment, extraction protocol, unknown compound floated around me like fragments of something I didn't want to understand. Daniel arrived not long after. Of course he did. He spoke to the doctors differently than I could, more precise, more informed, like he was already halfway inside whatever this was. That made it worse. Hours passed before anyone gave us a clear answer. A Dr. Mid, 40S, steady voice sat down across from us. "She's stable," he said first. Everything in me loosened at once. "But," he continued, "the device we removed was not standard." I let out a shaky breath. "We know that." He nodded. "It appears to be a micro-delivery injector. It released a measured dose of a compound directly under the skin." My hand tightened around the edge of the chair. "What compound?" I asked. "We're still analyzing it," he said, "but based on initial response, it's fast-acting, neurologically active. It wasn't designed for a child." My eyes flicked to Daniel. He didn't look surprised. "Who was it designed for?" I asked. Silence. Then the doctor said, carefully, "That's something law enforcement is currently investigating." I didn't look at the doctor. I looked at my husband. "For you?" I asked. He held my gaze. "Yes." The word landed heavier than anything else that night. Everything clicked into place. The man, the watching, the timing. Daniel controlling the room not to dominate, but to contain, to prevent exactly what I almost did, touching the wound, spreading whatever had been injected. "You were the target," I said. "Yes." And my voice broke, but I forced it out. She got in the way. His silence confirmed it. The days after didn't get easier. They got clearer. The man was part of a group Daniel had been working against illegal trials, unapproved compounds, things that weren't supposed to exist outside controlled environments. Daniel had helped expose them. And they had responded. Not with a warning. With precision. A crowded restaurant. Close contact. Something small enough to go unnoticed. It would have worked. If Ava hadn't moved at the wrong moment, Ava stayed in the hospital for over a week. Monitoring. Tests. Watching for side effects no one could fully predict. She recovered physically faster than expected. But she was quieter. More cautious. And every time she reached up near her temple, my chest tightened. The man was charged. Attempted murder. Illegal use of experimental technology. A list of things that kept growing as the investigation unfolded. The story spread. News picked it up. Restaurant incident. Targeted attack. Daniel's name surfaced not fully but enough. People had opinions. About him. About us. About whether he should have seen it coming. About whether he should have kept us away. That was the part that stayed. Not the blood. Not even the moment on the floor. The choice. What he knew. And what he didn't tell me. Weeks later, I sat beside Ava's hospital bed, watching her sleep. The room was quiet, calm in a way that almost didn't feel real after everything. Daniel stood in the doorway. Not coming in. Not leaving. Just there. Next time, I said without looking at him, I don't want to be the last one to know. He didn't argue. Didn't defend himself. Okay, he said. A simple word. But heavier now. I glanced at him briefly, then back at Ava. He stepped inside slowly, like he understood that the space between us had changed. That it wasn't something he could just walk through anymore. Ava stirred slightly, her hand lifting weakly. Instinctively, we both moved toward her at the same time. For a second, we hesitated. Then we didn't. Our hands met hers together. The crisis was over. But nothing about what came after was simple. And it never would be again.
If you were her, would you ever trust him again after knowing the truth?